In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro addresses a variety of pressing topics, including a recent attack from Stephen A. Smith regarding Shapiro's stance on the potential pardon of Derek Chauvin, the economic outlook under President Trump, and the ongoing chaos in Syria. Shapiro aims to provide clarity and context to these discussions, emphasizing the importance of facts over narratives. Shapiro begins by discussing the backlash he received from Stephen A. Smith, who criticized him for suggesting that Derek Chauvin, convicted for the murder of George Floyd, should be pardoned by President Trump. Shapiro argues that Chauvin's federal charges could lead to a longer prison sentence compared to state charges, and he believes that if someone is innocent, they should not languish in prison. He plans to elaborate on his belief that Chauvin is not guilty of the charges against him, asserting that the media and political figures prematurely labeled Chauvin as guilty, which he claims influenced the jury's decision. Shapiro takes issue with Smith's argument, which posits that if the racial dynamics were different, specifically if George Floyd were a white Jewish person and Chauvin a black cop, Shapiro would not advocate for a pardon. Shapiro counters that the race of the individuals involved should not affect the assessment of guilt or innocence. He argues that the media's narrative surrounding the case was driven by racial identity politics, which he believes distorts the truth. Transitioning to economic matters, Shapiro discusses President Trump's recent comments about the possibility of a recession. He notes that while Trump has not ruled out a recession, he emphasizes the importance of maintaining a stable economy. Shapiro expresses concern over the potential for a government shutdown, which could exacerbate economic uncertainty. He highlights the need for predictability in economic policy, particularly regarding taxes and regulations, to foster a favorable business environment. Shapiro also touches on the ongoing discussions within Congress about spending and fiscal responsibility. He interviews Representative Chip Roy, who advocates for a spending freeze and emphasizes the need for Republicans to take a strong stance on fiscal conservatism. Roy argues that maintaining a spending freeze in an inflationary environment is a significant win for conservatives, and he encourages his colleagues to focus on long-term budgetary reforms. The podcast then shifts to the situation in Syria, where Shapiro discusses the rise of Hay'at Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, a Sunni Islamist terror group backed by Turkey. He explains that the chaos in Syria has led to increased violence against minority communities, including Christians and Alawites. Shapiro condemns HTS for its brutal tactics and highlights the role of Turkey in supporting this group. Shapiro criticizes the media's portrayal of the situation, arguing that it often overlooks the complexities of the conflict and the historical context. He asserts that the fall of Assad's regime has led to a power vacuum filled by extremist groups, which poses a significant threat to religious minorities in the region. He emphasizes that the United States should not be blamed for the actions of these terrorist organizations, as they are driven by their own ideologies and agendas. In a related discussion, Shapiro addresses the role of Qatar in the Middle East, particularly its support for terrorist organizations like Hamas. He critiques Tucker Carlson's recent interview with the Qatari Prime Minister, where Carlson seemed to downplay Qatar's malign influence in the region. Shapiro argues that Qatar's financial support for terrorism and its ties to Iran undermine U.S. interests and contribute to instability. Shapiro expresses skepticism about the effectiveness of U.S. foreign policy in the region, particularly regarding negotiations with Iran. He believes that while President Trump seeks to provide an off-ramp for Iran, the threat posed by the Iranian regime remains significant. Shapiro emphasizes the need for a strong stance against Iranian aggression and terrorism, arguing that the U.S. must prioritize its national security interests.